start with is obviously go through the life cycle of our salmon, and the salmon eggs come, and we usually choose not to dissect until about March because we want to get deep into the life cycle. And then we move into internal and external anatomy, and we do blood pictorials of those, and we try to do a fairly nice job of connecting to the human body what the salmon have. So we'll have students, stand up and say, okay, this is my version of gills, things like that. So we'll talk about the similarities and differences between the human body and the salmon body, and kind of meet those living structures standards that sometimes are hard to meet. The plant animal structures, this is one great way to meet those standards. Aside from doing the pictorials, we have a salmon big book from GLAD that many of you have probably seen or made. And so this is a great thing to read through before we start too, so they know what they're looking for. But a lot of times they'll want to be right up in it, and we've tried to find a solution for allowing the kids that really want to get their hands wet and in it. We use these little lunch boats from the cafeteria, and our cafeteria is fantastic. And we actually have kids, where she's done the labeling, we actually have kids doing that, her sitting around us. And we try to put the parts in them, and we pass them around the whole class, and everybody gets to touch them and feel them and really get into them. One thing that we ban in our classroom is ooh. You are not allowed to say ooh, gross, disgusting. Our phrase that we always use is how scientific. And so they can say it with the grossest face and with the grossest voice, but they don't be like, how scientific, But we don't allow the girly, this is so disgusting. And to speak of girly, we are probably two of the girliest girls we know. We do not hunt, we do not fish. I have never fished in my life. I have never cut up an animal prior to doing this. So just to give you that, this isn't something I do. So it was the first time I did it, I had to take a really deep breath. I thought I was gonna get nauseous, and I said, I can just do it, I have to do it. And we made the decision at first for our girls in our classroom, because I think it's allowed for them to say, ooh, gross, I don't want to be a part of it, and I don't want to get in there, I don't want to touch it. And I think that was the most powerful thing the first year we did it, was the girls seeing us do it and them getting their hands all over everything. So we do set up parameters in our classroom. If you do the model where maybe one of you is here and your teammate's not here, that you can kind of bring your kids together and do it together. We kind of set up the management piece of that, of people in the back are allowed to stand, people in the front aren't. We do it under our document camera so that they can get a really close-up view of those things, plus we pass them around.
And it cooks it really nicely.
Yeah, it's nice and hot up there, so that smell gets a little bit much when that heat is on. So, but for the female, and we do that one first, and then we allow them to go to recess for them to get fresh air, for us to get fresh air, for us to clean up a little bit, and then get the male out, and then we bring the kids back in. And the whole time we're connecting to our charts on the wall, to our big book, to any questions and comments the kids have, to the human body. We're trying to make it a learning process the whole time that we're going through it. We leave the door open, and we always tell kids too that if you're feeling a little queasy, you can step out the door, but you do need to be, an eye shot. And we do, allow for those kids that it really does make them a little queasy, because that does happen sometimes. So, anything else you can think of? After we do the classroom one, we also, in the computer lab, and we also show them for their home, if they have computer options at home, that they can do the online virtual dissections. Anybody done that in here? Yeah, it's super cool. You just literally Google salmon virtual dissection, and the kids get to use scalpels and spoons and tweezers, and it walks them through step by step on how to do a dissection without having to do a dissection. So, the first thing we do is we print off, this is just, you can Google it, I think it's been available to us through the Conservation District before. You just Google Salmon Dissection Guide, and it literally has step by step by step exactly how to do it. So we have this guide out. It gets a little gross by the end, but we have this guide out, and I still use it after 5 years of doing this, 6 years of doing this. I still have the guide out, and I go through it every time. So one thing I may ask you to do that I don't know how to do, or I don't do very well because I just mangle things, is I don't do the eye or the brain. Okay. Because the eye has not come out right, and then the brain, it's just, I think my tools haven't been sharp enough.
And the brain is hard brain.
And you can see that one. They often will have a hump behind their gill covers right there. So I kind of try to hold up one or the other and ask them if they think it's a male or female. They're sometimes surprised at how large the female is compared to the male. But we kind of keep it a secret until we open the stomach so that they can, or the bottom, so they can see all the eggs come out. So we start with the outside and we point out that they do have nostrils, and I show them right here, and we make sure that's under the document camera so they can see, and then, like I said, later they can come up and feel them and check them out. We show them the eye, and we just talk about how it's really hard to get out, but and they're welcome to come feel it if they want or look more closely at it. We talked about how they don't have eyelids, and we kind of start having a conversation about why humans have eyelids and that comparison. And then we go through the fins and we have them help us label them. Do you want to talk about that? Great. Oh, okay. So then we talk about too that if they don't have an adipose fin, they were hatchery raised. And so both of these actually have one. So usually, well, we've had some that don't have them and some that have them. So we talk about that. That's kind of one of those body parts that doesn't really have a use, and so that's one way you can easily see. So we go through each of the fins, the dorsal, the pectoral, the pelvic, and the anal fin. We talk about which ones have pairs and which ones are singles. We also go back through the purpose for each of these, for steering, for turning, and the caudal fin. And then one thing they're always really excited to see is the lateral line. We talk about what a cool part of their body that is, that senses pressure changes around them. And so because they're the changes in the water will help them get away from predators and know when food is nearby or different changes. So you can kind of see that line there. So we start by in the slime. We talk about slime and scales, and we just talk about the importance of slime and how that helps them get away from predators and helps them swim easily. And so we start and we tell them that we start at the, am I right? Okay, at the vent, and we use the words for everything, and we just ignore the giggles and whatever, and we just talk about that's where waste is eliminated, and they get over that after a couple of times you say. Oh, yes. Did we do the gills first? Yeah. Yes, okay. So, I back up. We talk about the gills and the gill covers and the importance of the gills. The gill cover is kind of hard to get off. It's kind of hard cartilagey stuff. The fins, or the gills underneath are so beautiful, and the kids are super impressed by them.
She gets wild with a knife, so
you have to get away from me.
Keep kids away. But I mean, naturally, they're so curious. They just start creeping closer, closer, and closer, and you're like, back up.
Protecting those very important gills, and pass that around and let you feel if you want to. Gills.
So we talk to the students about how the gills are kind of like a coffee filter, and they filter everything so that the salmon gets, nice, cold, clean water, and they're always really excited about how soft and feathery they are. They think they're going to be just this really super hard, prickly thing, and then they feel them, and they're really excited about that. So we try and get, we'll do one side, and sometimes we'll cut it in half so that we can pass 2 trays around, just to make it a little bit easier so that all the kids get to see it pretty quickly.
2 people that have 2 sets of hands sometimes. Okay. So we kind of show them it has almost this like horseshoe quality, and these are a little prickly here, but what she was talking about is the layers and how soft they are.
They're very feathery.
So they actually think they're sort of beautiful and impressive. First, and one thing too, when we have them leave at recess and come back, they always want to look and feel at the teeth. The teeth are incredibly sharp, so we kind of let them look, but try not to, because they can like give you almost like paper cut cuts. They're very sharp. But show them the jaw and how it moves, and they also are always curious about the tongue that's in there too. So
salmon do have tongues, and they have teeth on their tongues.
And they can cut your fingers.
yes,
And they, yeah, sure. So be careful.
Is that the voice of experience here?
Yes.
A little bit, yes. The first interesting to see that.
Richie.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting teeth at the time.
So I'm gonna start at the vent and slide right down the middle of the belly. And I try not to go too deep because it cuts into the egg, but they start spilling out. And the kids who are closest can start to see that first.
Yeah.
How scientific.
Thank you. It's a little bit stiff between the fins. There's almost like cartilage there. They are totally shocked and impressed. And if you can get them in a bag like this, it's really cool. But then they can see how many eggs are in there. Yeah.
Maybe after the
So we usually have 2 containers for these because there's so many. Dinner? Caviar? Yeah.
Very scientific.
Very scientific.
Yeah, that is
Yeah. Okay. So the liver, and literally you can read it right off here. The liver is the largest organ in the patient's body. It's part of the digestive system. As in humans, it's essential for maintaining proper level of blood chemicals and sugars. So it's fairly large in this one. Anyone who wants to, is welcome to come up. Okay. What do we have next? Stomach. So, yeah. And you have to be, so I don't know if you guys can see it, because this is one thing you want to try not to break when you're doing this, is bladder, swim bladder. I have never been able to do the straw thing with blowing it up. Can you do that? I bet you can. We did have a vet in another class who was able to get it out and fill it with, if you get it all out in one piece, you can actually use a straw and fill it up with air. And so as long as you see this little air bubble, your swim bladder is still intact. And that's the organ that allows them to go up and down. So they fill it up to go up and let the air out to go down. Okay. So next is the stomach. And you can kind of follow the intestines.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, she wants me to try.
You got that big one.
Yeah, you can do it without using the straw. You're better off.
Yeah. Sometimes I just show it beforehand in case it's
Well, if you can like twist the ends and let it still have air in it, that's.
So I'm noticing you guys really working on the female. Do the same stuff for
So
the male.
when we go back to the male, we usually just kind of review the pieces fairly quickly, and then we show the testes. And that's the only difference we talk about. Am I correct? That's the only difference? Yes. Aside from the exterior nose and components back. And the size usually.
So really, the only reason you have 2 fish is to show the reproductive organs. You really only have to cut up 1 fish. However, if you really want to try to get that swim bladder out and you puncture it the first time, you have a backup. You get to try it twice.
If your fish is frozen, it's basically impossible to get your swim bladder out. He or she has to be thawed to be able to pull it out without ripping that membrane. So that's an advantage to having a really thawed fish.
I'm kind of on this, but this is the stomach and the intestines. And occasionally, not to be graphic, but the intestines can be full sometimes.
Lovely.
So, and this goes right to the vent.
Your face.
I try not to do the icky face. I try. stomach and intestine and the digestive tract. Not yet. You have to kind of get all the organs out that are on top of it first. Spleen. Spleen, is that? Yes, it is fantastic. And then, like I said, it gives you, and we're not going through everything, but it gives you all of the, what the job of the organ is. Then you have the spleen. What? Heart. Okay. The heart, if you don't get up high enough to the bottom of the head, you won't find the heart. So you kind of have to.
Some people are edging away.
I think closer even though I want to.
I'm trying to overcome it. Way to go.
And the heart is really cool too. If the heart is frozen, it's actually kind of cool, but it's kind of cool.
Everything's kind of cool.
Kind of cool.
It kind of is. It's very scientific.
Very scientific.
It's very scientific.
And you can see the little ventricles.
And it's very cool.
You can see the little.
I do like that.
Did I grab something else? Yeah. This is something. I know it is that. I'm sorry. Yes. Yes. Do we have a heart? Now we're dry. Yeah. Okay. There we go. There we go.
What was on top of the heart?
I don't know if this is going on or
Maybe it's a tumor.
maybe. Remember when we had one that broke? Yeah, we did have one that had a growth one time. I'm not sure. Is this one?
No, we already
that's
had
the big
this
one. It might have, it might be the gallbladder that was attached up there.
Oh,
We'll
that's
go
true.
gallbladder.
Call it the gallbladder.
We'll go with
Sure,
gallbladder.
kids won't know that.
It's a part.
My dad did. Okay, so the swim bladder is kind of, and you can see I still have some bubbles there, so there's still air in there. If you kind of just slice your knife along the edge, it'll just almost like peel out. If I do it right. So this is what allows them to go up and down. We usually do like, I don't know, 45 minutes for the female. For 45 minutes to an hour for setup and do the female, and then we let them outside, and then it's only like 15 minutes for the male, 10 or 15 minutes. And you want to be careful because the kidney is under the swim bladder. The kidney comes out really cool too, especially when it's frozen.
No, not so much.
Not tonight at least. So it's really thin, like membrane stuff. Just a little air in there. Kind of. And if you can, I might have got all the air out, but if you can pinch the two ends and it still has air, you can kind of get a bubble in the middle, or you can do the straw thing and try to blow it up. Anybody want to try that? You put the straw in one end and you hold the other end and you try to blow it up like a balloon.
No good.
It's actually in the guide. I think they show it how you can float it in the water. And there's a picture of one that's not. So, there's a straw right there.
Yeah, here we go.
Somebody trying it? Okay. Do you have a straw?
Right, but do you want me to touch the straw?
You may not want us to touch the straw.
So you're gonna come to the different classrooms and blow up.
Right.
Well, there's only one in the whole school, so.
Or this one.
No, to everybody else's school.
Yeah, I'll
Yes.
Oh,
Sure.
So I'll leave this here and I'll put there's a straw there and there's some gloves here if you want to try it. You don't want me to touch it. The kidney.
oh, my wife got one.
The,
We're gonna blow this one.
the,
Don't kiss me.
the kidney is along the spine there, and a spoon works really good to get it out. I think that's even in there, and it's in the kids' virtual dissection too. Sorry. It's very thick, and it's just right along the spine there, and it's a two joined together. Sorry, the size of it. That's sorry. Yeah. Looks just like a thick.
Yeah, so look at what.
The other stuff. It's coming out. It's losing half. Yeah, it kind of comes, especially if it's frozen, it will come out in one piece. I mean, this one is really odd. It's kind of falling apart. And it's all along its backbone there. We talked about how dark it is because it's full of blood. And then they can also see the backbone spine in there. Okay, and then there's just a little blurb in there about the skeletal system. We can talk about the ribs and the spine. And that is it for the female. So you're welcome to come on up and look and touch and whatever you want. Or don't want.
The initial, the ones that are really initial slice.
Yes, it is. That's the. And you just said we kind of specifically go over the hooked snout and the hump, and some will have a much bigger hump than this one. And we just kind of review and have the kids talk through all the parts again on the external, and then we go to the internal. So you can see like our two-person way works really good. You can have one person explaining and monitoring kids, and you can have one person cutting. They're very slippery. And like she said, if there's organs that you mangled or didn't get out or whatever, you can always do it on the second one if you have that option. Do I do what? I usually don't do them a second time, but you could. Yeah. Oh, you didn't? I can right up there. Yep, they're right. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can show you again. So cut the. You just have to be careful. Like she said, this is really hard, and you don't want to slip with your knife, and the fish are really slippery. This one came off great. So you have your gill cover there. You can even just see the difference in size. Right, that's what I thought. Okay. And for the gills, there's just like on the outside, there's just kind of a membrane connecting them, but if you get down further, they're a little more attached. Okay, so I kind of flip it over and I show them the difference of what they initially see before we cut it out. Cut them out. It's a huge difference, a lot less blood, a lot less to see in there than the eggs when they spill out. So you just have 2 testes, one on each side. There are these long white sections.
You need a tray.
Yeah.
It's not legal. Are you gonna label it?
That's all right.
Does she want to try this one, bladder?
Huh?
Do you wanna
Yeah,
try
I'll
that?
try.
Do you want to write testes on here? Would that be fun? I'm kidding.
So this one, the swim bladder is totally full. See all the air?
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
do you want to try it?
Yeah. Okay. So to get this swim bladder, if you puncture it, you're running out of options. So what you have to do is you have to get all the organs first. So that includes the spleen, liver. You can potentially leave the heart, but I would go ahead and remove it. And then also get the digestive tract. All of it separates. Every organ is actually separate. Do you get it?
Oh,
wow.
I poked too many
Oh. Every organ is separated by a membrane. So if you can peel the organ away from each other membrane, you have a chance of getting in the swim bladder. So I'm going to just gently pull the digestive tract out all the way down to the vent. And you can just rip it out, but just use your fingers. The more knives, or the more knife cuts you put in towards the swim bladder, the higher chances that you're going to puncture it.
She works with it.
So I'm going to get the heart. I just use my fingernails to kind of just pull everything out as few knife cuts as possible once I'm in the organs. There's a smooth. The pyloric ceca, which is connected. I think that's your. Oh, that was the liver. There's your spleen. All right. So. I always start, when I try to get the swim bladder, start up towards where the heart is. So the swim bladder goes the entire length of the kidneys. So it's really, really long. So start all the way to the front of the fish where the esophagus enters into the fake body cavity, okay? So basically follow the digestive tract all the way up to behind the mouth. And then just use your fingernails. Separate those membranes. And it'll peel out. If you get a hole and you use paper towels, I'll show you a little trick. It's like a Band-Aid. It's like a patch. Just get a little piece of paper towel. It has to be this nice, white stuff, not the stuff that's in the bathrooms. And I'm not kidding. Dip it in some blood, and you can make a patch. It'll seal up that hole temporarily, at least long enough to show the kids. It should just peel out. Wow. I think this one's punctured, but I might be able to blow it up, which sucks.
I'm not sure what that says about you, but it says some. I'm just not sure.
Oh, that looks good. She got it. Oh, she did get it.
And it goes all the way down to right above the vent. So again, it goes the whole length of the fish. And you can almost see where the bubble of air stops. Now this is the last breath that the fish took.
Oh,
sorry.
so sad.
And there you go. So normally it's a lot more inflated. If I wanted, I could put a straw. I would advise you to have your straw ready. Now is not the time to go pick up your straw and try to put it in your mouth. Also, bear in mind that when you puncture it, that air is going to come out first. Don't have your mouth on the straw. I promise you it's disgusting. Then wait till the air leaves and then blow back up and then put your patch in. So you can get a swim bladder. Grab me that pyloric ceca. So there's a little bit of air. Oh, also, like she said, if you just kind of twist the ends like a balloon, you know. It'll almost seal itself, and then I always just throw the ends back over them when I put it back on the plate, and it just seals that air in there. And then the kidney's right behind it, so
Thank you.
there you go. Yeah.
Thank you.
Here, pull the gill back, put your knife about, I don't know, a finger's width away from the eyeball, and then just cut down like this. Okay? Basically, you're cutting the cheek off. Sometimes I'll use a napkin to get some traction. This is the part that always gets the sound of cutting. You know. All right, and then you just pull the gill cover off. You might have to make 2 extra cuts. Okay, so you pull that off, and then using your finger, go through the cheek and up under the eyeball.
Oh, I know. You're too close.
And
That is so scientific.
that is so scientific.
Oh, sorry.
It might pop out, so put a napkin over it and just push.
Oh!
And then,
Oh my Lord!
all you do is grab it with the other hand, pick up your fillet knife, and just separate the back of the eyeball. Just make a few
I am
cuts.
so strangely fascinated
I know,
by this
me too.
process.
And there's your eye.
Oh my God.
And I usually put this on a tray, because I'll let them touch it. So, there's your eye. For the brain,
Oh, this is going to be another
this
fun
is
one.
where you set it up like you would a chef. And of course, if you do it when you haven't removed the gills, then you can see the gills still attached. This is where I mess up a lot. So you gotta, it's easier on the male just because their kype, that hook nose, is more pronounced. But just follow the
Don't touch your face. Don't touch your face.
from the
Where you go?
nose going to the back of the head. So it's going to be really hard, and then all of a sudden it's going to be really soft and then hard again. You want to get like right below the, basically right between the eyes, but at the bottom of the forehead. And when you find that spot, it's almost 12 o'clock from the eyeballs.
So it's like the soft spot?
It's like the
So we
soft,
talk
yeah,
about-
it's
okay.
yeah. But in humans, right?
No, it's just,
Okay, and then just cut straight down.
that doesn't
All the
sound very
way
soft.
down to, all the way down to the, no, that was the teeth. Down to the jaw. And, and that'll pull the top jaw, and then that in there is the brain cavity, and you can see it's really tiny. It's also kind of frozen.
That was good.
It was really, I might not have gone back from it.
They're going to have a knife in a little while. So warning you.
If you don't go back far enough, you have to make like another cut about half an inch back. There it is. Oh. Yeah, sorry.
Is it still in the soft area?
It's just right above it. So I'll leave it like this so you can see. But here's the brain. And then I usually have tweezers. And you can actually pull out. There's the brain.
Oh my goodness.
That's it.
Wow.
Now remember, it's been frozen and then thawed, so the cells have burst. That's why it's all gooey. So it normally is not this jello-y inside the head. But what's cool is then you can actually see where the brain cavity's sat.
Take a wiggle of
So
Interesting.
the tweezers just kind of, there you go, kind of help just reach in there and pull it out. But you'd be surprised. Put your tweezers, it goes all the way back. All right. So, yeah. I'll be walking around helping you.
Well, maybe.
So we usually have 2 containers for these. Dinner? Caviar?
Very scientific.
Oh, they always want to know if they can use it for fishing. Those are gallbladder.
Okay. So I may confirm with Naomi that I actually did the right body parts, but so the next
What all?
oh yeah.